Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Well, welcome to the show. I am Jason, and this is Sports Spectrum. Really excited about our guest today, Jordan Hulls. He's a former Indiana basketball player, played at Indiana University, and he's actually an Indiana staple right there in Bloomington where he grew up. He was a member of the Class 4 IHSAA State Championship team in 2009, 26-0, a perfect season, undefeated at Bloomington High School South, where Jordan was then named Mr. Basketball and a Gatorade Player of the Year, and a pretty decorated high school career that took him to Indiana University with Coach Tom Crean. And he led his club to back-to-back Sweet 16 appearances in 2012 and his senior year in 2013. Jordan is now playing overseas. He's been doing that for 8 years now. And he's going to join us today from Germany as we talk about faith, we talk about basketball, lots to talk about with Jordan Hulls. And what exactly does what does basketball mean to the state of Indiana? What exactly does that mean? And I think we all know if we watch the movie Hoosiers or if we just go into Indiana, what basketball means. But hearing it from a guy who was the guy for a few years there in Indiana is going to be pretty cool here with Jordan Hulls. He's got a great story of faith as well. Before we get to Jordan, I want to recommend a couple places for you to check out. First, our website, sportspectrum.com. Easy place to go. Check out all of our content here at the Ministry of Sports Spectrum. And the second place is my email address, jason@sportspectrum.com. And you can reach me directly with your guest ideas, with your suggestions, your topics. People like Jordan Hulls, sometimes those guests that come on the show come directly from you. So we value your opinion. We look for your input. Please email me directly, jason@sportspectrum.com, if you got a guest idea for us. So really appreciate that. And we appreciate our sponsors today, Water Mission, a nonprofit Christian engineering ministry that fights the global water crisis with safe water, sanitation, and hygiene solutions in developing countries and disaster areas. They have served more than 5 million people in 56 countries. It's an incredible work that they do. Listen to some of these general water crisis statistics. 2.1 billion people lacking access to safe water around the world. 4.4 billion people lacking access to adequate sanitation. Things that we take for granted here in the United States, no doubt. And that number is astonishing when you really think about it, in the billions of people who don't have safe water and sanitation every single day. And that's what Water Mission's about, fighting the global water crisis. You can learn more and pray with them at watermission.org. And donate, please, if you can, watermission.org. We're also presented today by our friends at Compassion International. Check them out at fillthestadium.com. Right now, they got a great thing going on, a campaign, really, with pro athletes and Compassion teaming up to help release kids from poverty. Because of the pandemic, it's magnified these children's needs who are already in poverty, and it's taken them to really crisis mode. 70,000 kids potentially without a sponsor because of the pandemic, and that's the number, or the size, I should say, of many pro football stadiums that were once filled and now sit mostly empty. And that's what we're trying to do, is fill 70,000 empty seats, 70,000 children with needed sponsorship, basic needs like food, clean water, and education. And check out the website, fillthestadium.com. Right now, you can give, you can donate, and help release these children and their families from poverty. All right, let's get to our conversation with Jordan Hulls, Mr. Indiana Basketball. Back in 2009, played at Indiana University, won a state championship, now an overseas pro basketball player. He's going to join us today from Germany. This is Jordan Hulls on Sports Spectrum. Jordan Hulls, welcome to Sports Spectrum. How are you, buddy?
Hey, thanks for having me. Doing great. Just corralling the kids and just living the life over here with 3 little ones.
Corralling the kids in a pandemic in Germany, trying to play professional basketball. Well, you're not trying. You are playing professional basketball. So let's start there. What is right now for Jordan Hulls in the midst of a pandemic and a pro basketball career that's taken you a lot of different places overseas, but now currently in Germany?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind, not only if you're a basketball player, but whatever profession you have. If you're in America, if you're over here, it's, obviously everybody knows it's taken over the world. So we're just doing the best that we can with staying as positive in a negative situation. And for us, personally, we're just thankful to be able to play basketball games right now. We played 12 games and my team hasn't had any cancellations or anything like that. There has been in the league. But they're doing the best they can to make sure all the players and their families are safe. But like I said, we're just trying to make the most of it. And this is my 8th year in Europe, 5th year in Germany. So for us, we're just we're used to the culture, used to being away from everybody. We welcomed my 3rd child, my baby girl, in November. So I have a almost 4-year-old and almost 2-year-old. So I'm really in it right now. But it's a huge blessing to have them over here with me. I got over here in October, and they didn't get here until the first couple of days of January. So we spent some time apart. I had to miss my daughter's birth, unfortunately, but it's just part of it. A family decision that we had to make. We've had to do that a lot over the course of my pro basketball career, tough decisions to make and those kind of things. But like I said, we're just trusting God's plan and all that's going on and trying to figure out, we make the plans, yes, but he's guiding our steps. So we're just trying to maintain that faith, and no matter what hardships come our way during this pandemic and those good things.
So in the time that you've been overseas, it's been 8 years, you said now, 5 of them in Germany. How did the family dynamic, obviously kids didn't come into the picture until 3-4 years ago, I think you said, but having them with you, was it something that you had to have some separation because of the nature of the job, or have you been able to kind of bring your family and have them experience and encounter and be with you while you've been playing overseas?
Yeah. So when my first son was born, he was actually born in the States while I was in Germany. We found out my wife was pregnant after I'd already been over here a month, and I couldn't obviously break my contract and go home. So we spent that whole first pregnancy apart. Again, we're just, I think it's made us stronger as a couple and just going through those kind of things. But having my family with me means everything. Usually in a normal year without the pandemic, the preseason, those kind of things, they kind of hang back around in the States for maybe a month at the most. And then I can get acclimated to the new city, or if that's the case, and the surroundings and those kind of things, then they come and join me. But like I said, they are kind of a little bit more delayed this year with passport situations, restrictions, and those kind of things that we had to figure out. But, family is everything to me. As I've gotten older, I've started to realize that, basketball is it's taken me all over the world. It's been awesome. It's been my life. But once kids, and obviously my wife, but once kids came in the picture, you kind of shift your perspective to them and what's best for them, and continue to play and letting them see different cultures and those kind of things has been a huge blessing, and something that, even though it is difficult, we have had adversity, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I think I know my wife thinks the same way. Hopefully our kids understand that as well as they grow up and they understand that they've lived in different countries, learned other languages, and kind of absorb that. And I think God's put me in different spots all over the country, whether I understood it at the time or not, for a reason. And, I'm just super thankful for that.
What's basketball and really life like right now in Germany? We're taping this towards the end of January, and you said you got there in October. So you were in the States during the pandemic, and you've been in Germany during a pandemic. What is it like there? First of all, kind of explain the pro basketball life. I'm sure it's very similar to life here. Maybe it's not. But also kind of what lockdowns have been like, and just, is it very similar to what we're all going through here as far as the way that, you have to kind of wear masks and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So our last season, when COVID kind of hit in March, we were towards the tail end of our season, but it got canceled. And once we heard that the borders were shutting down in March, me and my family picked up my 2 kids at the time, and we're out of the country and back home in the States within 48 hours. So March is pretty early for us to get home. Usually it's May or June, but so COVID kind of cut that season short, and we were able to get home. At that point, they were on strict lockdown, much like we kind of did in the U.S. a little bit once we got a little bit later. But as of now, as a club, we get tested twice a week before our games. I'm not 100% sure on the NCAA protocols or what the how many times those guys get tested or whatever. But for us over here, you get tested, earlier in the week and then 48 hours before the game. And if everybody's good by that time, then you can play. But as far as restrictions for my family, as of now, you can only have one other person. Let's say there's a household of 2. You can have one other person come and be with my family. So only one other person can come and be with you inside. But I have heard they're about to up that and be a little bit more strict here in a couple weeks. So we're just gonna wait and see kind of what they tell us what we have to do. But you got to wear masks. You got to do all that kind of stuff. Fresh air is good for everybody. We can't be cooped up in here with 3 kids all day and not get outside. So hopefully the weather holds up for us. But it's very similar in that aspect. And I feel safe here. Everybody's doing their due diligence and trying to maintain, social distancing and, all that good stuff. But like I said earlier, I'm just super thankful that we're able to play games at this moment and that my family's here to enjoy this time with them. I can't really complain about that.
Jordan Hulls is our guest here on Sports Spectrum, former Indiana basketball player. And those Indiana roots, they go way back, don't they? I mean, your grandfather was a shooting coach at Indiana with Coach Bobby Knight, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, they were childhood friends. And then my grandpa was with him at West Point. And then once Coach Knight got the job at IU, he followed him there. So that's kind of how my dad's side of the family got to Bloomington. And my mom's side, her father was a professor at IU. So it's kind of been in my blood. I didn't really have any other choice. Luckily, I grew up 10 minutes from the campus and was able to attend IU. But I've been a diehard Hoosier my whole life. So it's pretty cool that I got to do that. Did
you ever really contemplate when you started to realize that you were good enough to play at an IU? And I'm sure you were recruited. I know you were recruited by other schools in my research and Mr. Basketball and state championships, which I want to talk about that experience in a minute. But was there ever a doubt that you were going to go to Indiana, or did you really seriously contemplate maybe going to some other schools?
No, I did. I for sure did. Purdue actually was a school that I really enjoyed. I liked their coaching staff. They had seen me play since I was in 9th grade because I was on a good AAU team, and they came to watch the other guys, and I just so happened to be on the team. And eventually I started getting recruited. But there's definitely other schools that, me and my dad, we would always lay out the pros and cons, no matter what school it was. Of course, when IU came, that was a huge opportunity to stay home and play and be part of something really special, bringing back the tradition that everybody knows IU basketball, especially for a kid who grew up in Bloomington. But I definitely, I took the process just very serious, and I wanted to do what was best for me, if the fit was good and that kind of thing, no matter what school it was. Now, when Coach Crean got there and I saw kind of what he had laid out for us and my role that I could play for him and the style of play, I thought it really tailored to my game, and it ended up being a really good decision for me. And I think for me to stay home and have my friends and family to come and see me play was something that you can't really put a price on, or, you can't really, not very many kids get to do that. So I was, looking back, it's a really good choice that I made then. But I will say I was looking at other schools as well.
Your grandfather, you mentioned him, and certainly being a shooting coach and being around Coach Knight and the Indiana program coming from West Point, there had to be some amazing lessons that you got to learn just watching him and being around him. What was one? Is there one, or maybe a great lesson that you can think back to when you think about your grandfather and what he taught you?
Yeah, he my dad and him kind of thought very similar. They're sarcastic guys, but they got their point across. And he was very matter of fact. Like, one of the things that he taught me at a very young age was the mid-range is a lost art. Shooting is a lost art in general, but the mid-range jump shot is something that you're going to have to work on. You're not the biggest guy. Everybody knows you can shoot from the outside, but you're going to have to kind of score at 3 levels. So he taught me that at a young age, but also kind of the work that goes into becoming a good shooter and how you should approach shooting. You shouldn't go to a gym, let's say, for 3 hours and shoot just lackadaisical shots. It's better you just go for 45 minutes and do game speed shots to perfect that. So obviously it translates a lot better to a game. And he taught me that, and my dad, when I was a little kid. So I kind of have always done that. And it's the same thing I preach to kids if I go and train them. It sounds very simple, but not a lot of kids do it. They think if they just go get a lot of shots up, then they're good, which, okay, yeah, but you need game speed shots too. So I think that was the one lesson that I really took to heart, and I think it kind of worked out for me.
I read that your dad didn't allow you to shoot 3-pointers until 7th grade either. Is that true? Is that right?
Yeah, that's very true. Partly, one, I was too small and not strong enough to, for sure, get it to the hoop with good form, and that's kind of just how our mentality. I'm a big stickler on details and fundamentals and stuff. So once I got serious about wanting to learn how to shoot and do it properly. He's like, all right, well, you sure you want me to push you? I was like, yeah, I'm good. I want that. So I was like, all right, all my friends are all shooting these threes, and I'm stuck just not being able to shoot any 3-point shots as a kid. But it ended up being a great lesson for me, and building mental toughness, I think, too. Every time I go on the court, do my form shots from a foot out, and then slowly make my way back. And but that rule was made just simply because I wasn't strong enough to shoot it with good form from the 3-point line. And once I was, then he said it was okay. But everybody is kind of shocked when they hear that story.
Yeah, and then you're shooting like 40-footers the second that you're allowed to shoot 3-pointers, right? You're going like
exactly
range.
Trying my best, yeah. Just make sure Dad's not watching all the time.
That's right. I got to ask you, because I'm sure this question gets asked to you overseas, or maybe you answer it without it being asked, because the idea of basketball in Indiana, it's like, peanut butter and jelly. I mean, that's where when you think basketball, you think of the state of Indiana. Certainly you think of, Hoosiers and that movie, and even just, all of the tradition and the roots that basketball stems from in Indiana and what that sport means to that state. So I'm going to ask you to try your very best to describe what basketball means to the state of Indiana, certainly to the town of Bloomington where you grew up, and even to Indiana University.
Yeah, it's funny because every year I'm overseas, first they ask where I'm from. I say Indiana, and half the people don't even know where that is on a map anyway. And okay, well, we're known for basketball. Most, Europe is known for soccer. My state is known for basketball. And as a kid, it's kind of, it's your birthright. It's just something that, I was a really good baseball player as a kid, but I was better at baseball, but basketball was it. That's all I knew. I grew up watching Coach Knight, the candy stripes. It's kind of just ingrained in your head. Mm-hmm. And you grew up watching great basketball. Doesn't even have to be IU, good high school teams, good middle school teams, even learning the fundamentals. It helped that my dad was kind of a stickler on that kind of stuff too. But I had a huge passion for the game. And when I'm trying to explain that to people, it's like a livelihood. Basketball is like, it's our life. It's what we do. It's all we know. And you see the goals on the side of barns. Like, that's a real thing. That's people that think that's just in movies. No, like, there's a basketball goal on every driveway and every street, if in most cases, Yeah. So I think that's just a huge testament in how we're able to produce, not necessarily have to be NBA players, which we have a lot of as well, but just great basketball players at all levels. And just the way that the game is played, I would say, is different than most. I would argue it's way different than any, but it's just something that I'm so fortunate that I had good mentors, good coaches. And that's another thing that's always missing sometimes, is that you have the resources, but the coaching isn't there, or you don't have the right opportunities. But where I was from, and I was fortunate to have those right steps for me, I think. So I guess to put it in plain, it was my life. Like, it's all I knew. It's all I wanted to do. Ball handling drills when I was 4 or 5, through cones in my driveway. Mm-hmm. That's just how it is in Indiana, man.
We're going to intersect the conversation with faith in a second. For those listening, it might be like, well, when are we going to hear about his faith? I promise you we're going to get there in a second. But there's just a lot, because you've experienced so much in playing basketball in Indiana. I mean, you won an Indiana State Championship. That's the epitome, right, of high school basketball, and winning a state championship in the state that is all about basketball. You go undefeated. You were named Indiana's Mr. Basketball. And that was all in just 2009, if I'm not mistaken, Jordan. That's a heck of a year for you. Can you tell me about that year and kind of how special that was for you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I played for the all-time winningest coach in Indiana basketball history, Coach J.R. Holmes. He's still coaching to this day, but again, it goes back to having great mentors and great coaching. But going back to my senior year, the year before, we had been upset in the sectionals, and we weren't too happy about that. We're number 1 in the state. Always had a good team every single year I was in high school, but we got upset. So then that senior year, It's every kid's dream growing up in Indiana to go through sectionals, go and play in front of 8,000, 9,000 fans in a high school event, which is also hard to explain to people over here or even in different states. Towns literally close down to come and see you play a basketball game. So for me, that was a really special year. And just, to see all my hard work pay off, a lot of my teammates' hard work pay, all of us had grown up playing with each other in one way, shape, or form. We had a couple of younger guys, but it kind of all came together for someone to end their senior year the way that we were able to, going undefeated, state championship, Mr. Basketball, Gatorade Player, but to do it with the kind of guys that I did. And I think also what made it special for me was the way that I did it. I didn't have to go out and score 20 points every game or shoot 20 times a game. We had a great team. I've always just been about, I don't care really what happens as long as we win the basketball game. And that's kind of how our team was. And for me, I think that's kind of the culture of Indiana basketball too. That's how most kids play there, or I would like to think would, where I was from. So I think that was just a really cool way for us to end that chapter of our lives. And then moving on to going to play for my hometown school at IU was kind of icing on the cake to be able to do that. But for sure, special moment for me and my family. Every kid's dream growing up in Indiana to do that.
I think of I say a little older than you, but I'm actually a lot older than you. I'm in my late 40s, and I remember Damon Bailey. And when I grew up in New York and upstate New York, but basketball was a passion of mine. I played it. I wasn't really good, but I loved watching it. I loved studying it. I loved March Madness. I even followed the high school game a little bit. And I remember when Damon Bailey, he won a state championship and was Indiana Mr. Basketball and went to Indiana as well. There's not a lot of guys who have done that, I have to imagine. You must have heard that name quite a bit when you were kind of going through your journey and then eventually going to IU.
100%. I mean, Damon's a legend. He's from 20 minutes about outside of Bloomington in a town called Bedford, or actually even smaller than that. But at least for my era or my age group, my generation, whatever you want to call it, everybody knew who Damon Bailey was. Everybody. Yeah. Even my dad coached against them in middle school. Like, this kid's getting offered by Coach Knight in 8th grade. He's selling out the RCA Dome. People are like, what's the RCA Dome? They don't know. But
it's a lot of people. It's a large arena.
It's a lot of people for a high school game. Again, this is a high school game. You see this at like NCAA championship games. That's where you see these huge crowds. But all these people came to watch Damon Bailey play. His scoring record, I don't think will ever be broken in high school, Indiana high school basketball. But he's a legend that you think of. Steve Alford, even from Indiana. We have so many guys from Indiana that played high school in Indiana that went on to play for our university. So it's pretty special and I was honored to be able to be part of that as well. It's a really cool thing to do. Jared Jeffries is another guy who's from Bloomington. He went to the other high school, the Bloomington North High School, but another guy who played, in Bloomington, went to IU, and then he had a great pro career. But I think, again, it's a huge testament to the state of Indiana and the style of basketball and how much we cherish and just love the game. And I think it shows when you hear stories like that, that people may not really understand or realize.
Take a quick break here with Jordan Hulls. We'll be right back on Sports Spectrum. Sports Spectrum today is presented by Compassion International, the most trusted child development ministry in the world. And we're talking about COVID-19 impacting a lot of people around this world. And with Compassion, children around the world are living in poverty, and the issue of food has got really bad. It's gone from simply being hungry to starvation. The pandemic has magnified these children's needs, and they are truly in crisis. So we're partnering with an organization called Compassion International, and you know about them. They help kids in poverty all around the world meet their basic needs like food, clean water, and education, so they can not only survive but reach their full potential. And of course, this past spring of 2020, most of the events that Compassion International relies on to help sponsor these children in crisis were canceled due to the pandemic, leaving 70,000 kids in desperate need of help. Now, 70,000 also happens to be the average size of many pro football stadiums that were once filled and now sit mostly empty. Each of the 70,000 empty seats represents a child in crisis who needs you, who needs all of us to step up and fill the stadium. Now think about this. For the cost of a couple of tickets, food and drinks to the game, that of course few can attend right now, you can help one child for an entire year through Compassion International. So we're teaming up with Compassion. You can team up as well to fill the stadium and help these kids in crisis. Join us by going to fillthestadium.com, clicking Give Now, and helping to release children from poverty. This is a stadium that cannot remain empty. Fillthestadium.com. We're also presented today by Water Mission, a nonprofit Christian engineering ministry fighting the global water crisis. Yes, there is a global water crisis. Listen to these statistics. 2.1 billion people lacking access to safe water. 4.4 billion people lacking access to adequate sanitation. Those were billions with a B. That is insane that many people don't have access to the things that you and I take for granted: safe water and adequate sanitation. Listen to this. Around the world, women spend 200 million hours every day simply walking to get water, and one person dies every 37 seconds from water-related illnesses. And right now, Water Mission is working to stop the global spread of COVID-19 by providing urgently needed safe water, sanitation, and hygiene solutions to refugee settlements and other vulnerable communities. We love Water Mission. I think you guys will too. You need to go pray for them right now if you could, because the work that they're doing is so important. And if you feel led, please donate. Please support Water Mission and the great work they're doing, and check them out at their website, watermission.org. Watermission.org, fighting the global water crisis. And we're back here with Jordan Hulls, the former Indiana basketball player, joining us here on Sports Spectrum. Let's intersect the conversation, Jordan, with faith. Tell us about your walk with the Lord, your walk with Christ, and the importance it plays in your life.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. You know, God has been so good to me and my family, and He's good to all of us, right? And whether we want to believe it or not. But I grew up in a Christian home. You know, from a very young age, I understood that, and I gave my life to Christ when I was 7 years old. Like, I understood what I was doing, and I wanted to get baptized at my church. And, you know, I did youth groups and stuff growing up. And, you know, I was playing sports and stuff like that too, but we tried to go to church as much as we can on the weekend, but, you know, all that kind of stuff. But again, it came down to having great parents, great leaders in my house who kind of showed me the way, showed me how to become a follower and how to actually learn the book. You know, it's one thing to actually read, but it's another to actually comprehend what we're supposed to be doing, right? You can show up, but you actually have to put into action what you're learning. So fortunate for me, I had a great role model, my father, who kind of led the way with that. It wasn't always easy for sure. Just like every other kid with their father. But, you know, it's super blessed to have that in my life, and other mentors who've kind of shaped me in that way. It's good to not only hear from, you know, a role model like my dad, but somebody else outside the family who I can have different conversations with, or, you know, all like that. I'm not saying I've been perfect or I haven't had any adversity. But as I've gotten older, I've learned to realize, especially with kids, it's crazy how much your perspective changes, and you kind of lose sight sometimes one year and then the next year. But with kids, man, it's been a huge blessing to have them. And, you know, each year I've played overseas, it's like, okay, why am I playing in Poland? Why am I going to Kosovo? Why am I going to these places where nobody knows of? Or, you know, in Poland, I had a good teammate, Garrett Stutz, who played at Wichita State. Hardcore Christian guy, was really good for me. We could kind of bounce off each other, did a couple of Bible studies. You know, I go to Kosovo. Why has God put me in Kosovo at this point? You know, maybe He's putting me here to impact this one person. If I can go and impact someone in this country, you know, that was well worth the whole year to go to Kosovo. Again, nobody knows where that is, but sure. I'm going there to play a game that I love. He's using basketball, my talents, to go and share His light and have His light shine through me. And hopefully people have seen that. Again, I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that in any way, but I feel like the more and more I started to understand that in my walk, the stronger my relationship with Him became. And I'm still working towards that. I'm still getting better every day, or trying to, so I can be that example for my kids as well.
Was there a moment for you, maybe it was when you got to IU, maybe it was in high school, where that parents' faith became Jordan Hulls' faith, right? Because we all have to kind of branch out from the growth that we've had when we were kids into our own journey and our own walk. Do you have a moment where that happened for you? Maybe a time where you were like, you saw yourself drifting, or you saw yourself getting so caught up in basketball, which happens to a lot of the athletes that we talk to here who are Christian and have the foundation, but still they have to make a decision for themselves. Was there a moment for you?
Yeah, I think once I got to high school, that's when things start to change. You know, there's girls, there's parties, there's this, there's that. Sure. I think that's when I started to realize, like, all right, well, one, if I truly want to be a basketball player at the next level, I'm already behind with athleticism and all this other stuff. I can't be doing anything crazy. Two, I want to do right by my parents because they raised me well. And then third, I need to, I need to decide which path am I going to take. And I think that crossroads when I started really, trying to figure out the kind of person that I was already at that point, but what's going to make me better and how am I going to achieve my goals? I understood that God was the way that was going to help me get to there. I couldn't do it alone. I was never going to do it alone. But I think it took, once I got to high school, to really realize, like, it's okay just to have a couple buddies or whatever, just to, hang out with, but I need to focus and not stray away and do those kind of things. So I think high school was for sure big. And then even in college, going to a big time university, you grew up in Bloomington. At least for me, when I grew up in Bloomington, I didn't realize how it's a university town. You grow up on the outskirts. Your parents, they're not going to let you go see all the bars and stuff downtown. Sure. As a kid. But once you're on campus, it's a whole nother world. And, I'd like to think I did a pretty good job of staying focused and what my job is, kind of how I treated it, being a student athlete there, just trying to do the best that I can, but it didn't come without adversity, challenges and those kind of things. And that was a huge test for me as well. But I was fortunate to surround myself with some really good people, some great teammates too. But mentors, maybe that's why God kept me home too. I was able to really reach out to those people in those times of need if I really needed it, or just to bounce ideas off of, or, if I was struggling, the first 2 years I didn't win very many basketball games. So it was a pretty hard 2 years for us. But, those kind of things really tested my faith as to trusting God's plan and what he had for me. Was it the right decision to come here and lose all these games? Well, looking back, of course it was. The last 2 years of my career is pretty dang good. But it was so much more than just the basketball piece too. I met so many good people, was able to do some youth groups in college. There's FCA, just met some really powerful people, even if it wasn't in the group, just other people who can kind of, guide me in the right way as well. Cody Zeller is one of my best friends, and he's a strong Christian guy. And he, we had our fun, of course, but we were able to keep each other, on the same page and able to hold each other accountable. And I think that was a big thing.
And Coach Crean has been open about his faith too. And he's in Georgia now, obviously not with Indiana, but the impact that he had on you, not just as a, from a faith perspective, but I just have to imagine as a growth perspective and just the importance of that head coach and the staff. I talk to so many guys and they say, listen, if you're in the right situation with the right coach, it's lifelong. Like it's an unbelievable connection or a relationship. And it's almost like a father figure in a lot of ways. There's a lot of different sort of definitions that you could use for coach, mentor and all of that. But for Coach Crean, he recruited you, he brought you there. He helped build that program back up when it was in some pretty rough times. As you mentioned, those first couple of years you were there. Tell me about his impact on you and certainly what you were able to learn from him.
Yeah, from the basketball standpoint, he's not an easy coach to play for. He's very demanding physically, mentally. So for me going through that, and I think the other guys would say the same thing, we for sure had our days where we're like, what are we doing, man? Like, what? This guy is crazy. But looking back at it and being a father now and just like understanding like these little things, the attention to detail, those kind of things kind of have prepared me for me today, still playing 8 years later. He taught me a lot about the game of basketball, just understanding and, different reads, all that kind of stuff. But more importantly, how to be mentally tough, how to control, your emotions, but being able to get the most out of others as well. Accountability, all those kind of things that are kind of, body language is another huge one he always talked about. Being intentional with things is very good, and it was big time for us as a program, as building a culture. We had to really rebuild the culture, but as off the court, seeing Coach Crean's transformation, really once Cody got there was a big time thing for Coach Crean's faith, I think, because he understood how strong Cody was in his faith. And I think, maybe some people thought it was phony or fake just to get one of the best recruits in the country, but it wasn't. You see it, Coach Crean, once he's into something, he's into it. Like, he is very, he's working his tail off, whether it's watching out of bounds plays or if he's reading the book. Coach Crean's all about the details. And once he kind of, it changes life. I really believe it changes life. And it's really cool to see him to be open about that. And, it's really, I respect him a lot for that. And it's really cool to have witnessed that transformation, I guess I should say. I mean, that was really, inspiring to see that and see how he's continued to do that. So people know, like, he was for real, like he wanted to genuinely change, and it happened for him. It's really neat.
That's cool. So what did discipleship look like for you as you kind of alluded to this, but as you've been brought to where you are now in Germany and overseas? And, we talk to a lot of guys in the NBA who are, or even in the G League or the D League, when they're in chapel and services and able to kind of have some spiritual, be filled up, aside from just reading the Bible, praying, and kind of doing your own thing. What's that look like for you? You mentioned it, alluded to it a little bit earlier, and I see your little one behind you. We want to make sure that...
Yeah, she's good.
She's okay. Absolutely. That's awesome. But what's that look like, your discipline? Let me let you take care of your kid, and I can edit
this.
You're
good. Yeah. No, you're good. Hi, baby. You're okay. There we go.
What's her name?
All good.
What's her name?
Margaret.
That's awesome. Yeah. Is she going to be a Maggie?
She'll be a Maggie. I'm sure people will come up with all sorts of nicknames for her, but her middle name's Louise, so maybe Lou. It'll be Maggie Lou or something.
That's very cool.
But she's good now. She just wanted to flip over.
No, that's cool. What does discipleship look like for you? Let me start the question again. This will be an easy edit.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, you're fine. Don't apologize. I do this all the time because I'm the one that messes up. So don't worry about it. So bringing it to where you are now, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, Jordan. What's discipleship look like for you today? Like, what does that look like when you're in Germany playing basketball? And maybe let's pretend it's not a pandemic, but if even in the midst of a pandemic, we still all have to be discipled in some way. And certainly reading the word, prayer, and things like that. Being married, I'm sure you and your wife have time together, but what does that look like for you? Do you have any kind of chapel service or, having an accountability partner or somebody that can kind of pour into you a little bit?
Yeah, it's, each year I've been over here, I've been fortunate to have great teammates, and I'm not one to go up and just, instantly like, hey, let's talk about Jesus, that's just not who I am. And I think it's, once somebody asks me the question, that opens up the door, for me to go and have that conversation with them. My dad always told me, be a friend first, and then, you got to build that rapport, that relationship, and then you can build onto that.
Absolutely.
So I've really taken that to heart, and it's been really cool to kind of see, even if it's just one conversation that I get to have and they get to see, and hopefully if they can see through me, the way my character is, the way that I hold myself accountable, and just carry myself on the court and off the court. Again, I'm not perfect. Of course, I'm going to blow up at practice every once in a while, but overall, I think they understand the kind of person that I am, and hope that would then give them the courage to ask me, like, why is this dude, why is he positive all the time? Why is he constantly encouraging people? Why is he, trying to bring the most out of other people? And that's my goal each and every day. My goal doesn't happen every day, but that's what I strive to do, is to just make an impact in some way or another. And a good example is when I went to Kosovo. It's a country that's 99% Muslim, and great people. They treated me really well. And, when I got there, I was like, okay, why, I had to walk 15 minutes of practice back and forth, an hour total every day. Not the best place to live. It's there's a war there in 99. Like it's different, but why am I here right now? What can I be doing? And that was a year I was by myself. My wife was still doing post-grad nursing school. So I had a lot of time to reflect. I read a lot. I did a Bible study with my dad. Soul Keeping was the book that we read together and kind of did like notes and stuff like that. And that really helped me. And what's funny is that once I started, giving my worries and everything to God, I ended up playing so much better. I played well, okay, but once I kind of let go, it's just crazy how much better I felt out on the court and how much more impact I could have. It didn't even have to be points. It could be, I'm making this teammate better. I'm making practices run smoother. I'm having good conversations. It's not just small talk with people. I'm actually having real life stuff. So then that gives them the chance to see what God has done for me. And hopefully that would, encourage them to do the same. So it's been cool. 8 years in, I've had great teammates who have been Christians, and we talk about it after practice and those kind of things. But I think the biggest guys who hold me accountable or my father and a mentor of mine, Ron Remack in Bloomington, and Cody Zeller, I talk to him and my mentor. We're on the same group chat, probably twice a week. We're just messing each other, trying to encourage each other, lift each other up.
That's good.
And then doing this with my wife as well over here, we try to do the best we can with 3 kids running around. So whether it's late at night or in the morning, we try and have a little just prayer time and just thanking God for the opportunities, no matter how chaotic it can be. Just understanding that this is the life that He's given us, and we're so thankful for it.
I got to ask you about going back to Indiana a little bit. I got to ask you about your favorite time, your favorite moment as a player. And especially with March Madness coming up, and it's a different March Madness this year. Certainly it's in Indiana, which is pretty cool, college basketball, but it's different than past years, but it's still March Madness, and the excitement and all that comes with college basketball, and really when it dominates the landscape of sports. You got to play in a couple Sweet 16s and go pretty far with 2 teams that you were on. What was your favorite moment as an Indiana basketball player, for you, maybe a March Madness moment?
Yeah, getting to the tournament is another kid's dream, winning a state championship, going to play at IU. That was always my dream. And to be able to play, March Madness was one of the cooler moments of my life for sure. It took 2 years of hardships to get there.
That's right.
Again,
you appreciated it more, right?
Yeah, I for sure. We definitely hated losing, and we didn't want to go back to that. So seeing our hard work pay off and getting to go, I think we were a 4 seed my junior year, and then the number 1 overall seed my senior year. Kind of seeing how hard or how far we had come and how hard we worked to get there was really cool. So my favorite March Madness moment, the VCU game my junior year. I played absolutely terrible, but it was a game of, it was unbelievable. I don't know how we won that game, but we just toughed it out. We grinded it out and got the W. And that was a game that, we were counted out after we didn't play again. I played so bad that game, and how that's my favorite moment, I don't know, but just the way that we won that game and were able to get to the Sweet 16 that year. And then we ended up losing to Kentucky in the Sweet 16, but honestly, I thought we played Kentucky the best out of anybody that whole year. We had already beat them once that year, earlier in the year in December.
Wasn't that game, that December game? We just had the Bachelor, Ben Higgins, on. I don't know if you know Ben or have a relationship.
Oh yeah, we're good friends. Yeah.
That's hilarious. So Ben was just on the show about a month ago or so, and I asked him about his favorite time at IU, and he brought that specific game up against Kentucky. Yeah. But that was December, right? A December game.
Yeah, December 10th, Christian Watford hit the shot. We probably should have won the game before that. It didn't have to get to that, of course. But the way that we won to be the number 1 team at our home court, seeing all the fans rush the court, that's you can't draw it up any better than that. So that was a really special moment. It's funny that Ben was on. Yeah, he was best friends with Corey Barnett, was one of my teammates that year. He was a walk-on, and him and Ben were roommates, actually. So it's funny.
Yeah, it was weird because I'm interviewing this guy, and I never watched The Bachelor, but I wanted to have him on because I saw he was a Christian, and he went to IU, and he had a basketball background. And we had a good conversation, but he brought up that game specifically and said that was the coolest experience for him, being at the game and just being a part of the crowd that rushed the court, right? And so That's probably such a cool moment. You've probably been a part of a few of those crowd rushing moments, I have to imagine.
For sure. Yeah. It's, I remember as a kid too, when Kirk Haston, he hit a last second 3 to beat Michigan State. Like, I remember all that stuff too. So just any basketball where Indiana had a huge win is always super special, but to actually be on the court at that time, it was a dream. You can't even put into words, how that felt. But, not only that game, I thought we had a lot of other big games leading up to the March Madness in that season, but, what games don't always stick out to me. It's just like where we ended up getting to and how we did it was always the more special thing to me. And of course, the end result was winning the games, but how we got there and what we had to go through is the thing that I remember most when I'm always asked that question.
Is that hard though? I read a lot of leadership books. I'm sure, you've read leadership books, or Coach Crean has had you guys read leadership books, or even in other areas. And you always hear about enjoying the destination or the journey more than the destination. And the destination is great when you get there, but enjoying the journey. It's hard to do it when you're in the moment though, isn't it? Because you can look back and be like, man, that journey was amazing, like you just said, but it's hard to do that when you're in that moment, because every game it's like, man, we want to get to the Final Four and we want to get to the tournament. Yeah. It's really hard, isn't it?
Yeah. How do you get that mindset of just staying present all the time and not thinking about it? It's difficult for sure. And, when, thinking about on how I was thinking then, we really approached, it's a cliche, but we did like one day at a time, especially when we were losing those first 2 years. Like, that's all we could do. If you try to think about, we got to play Michigan State. We got to go on the road to Ohio State. We got to go to Purdue, Robbie Hummel, Etwan Moore, like that's our rival. We're supposed to, those kind of things. You kind of have to take it day by day. And I think once we all bought into that mindset, it really did help us, because then we were super focused on getting better. We actually got better that day, not just saying it. We actually, all right, I really got to get better at getting over this ball screen today. I really got to get better at being a better communicator today, and I think that really carried over. The little things every single day add up to the great things in the end, right? So that's kind of how we approached it. And to see that as a 19-year-old kid, you don't always understand that, right? And I didn't read as many books as I have now.
I can imagine
talking about the same thing. Yeah. But we had a great staff and guys who really bought into that. And whether or not we knew that we understood that, that's what was happening.
And nobody likes losing, but I have to imagine for you, when you go from an undefeated Indiana State Championship to a team that, I don't remember how many games you guys won your freshman year, but 5, 6, 7, 8 games, something like that, right?
Yeah,
it was
10, I think 10. And Coach Crean, they won like 6 the year before, so 6, 10, and then like 12 or something.
Right, that's not a lot though. So you were doing a lot of, for lack of a better word, you were doing a lot of losing your freshman year. And listen, losing is in my ways, or in my experiences, it's the adversity that serves as the greatest teacher in life. Mm-hmm. And nobody wants to lose. You want to go undefeated every year. I have to imagine you weren't doing so well that initially handling losing when you hadn't lost for an entire season the year before.
Exactly. And I was brought up a winner. We were competitive, of course, but like winning was all that I had ever really known and wanted to be a part of, and was fortunate enough to be a part of. Of course, we had tough losses growing up too, but
sure.
Going into that freshman year, I don't think I was ready for that amount of losing. I remember having phone calls with my dad and one of my mentors, was this the right decision? Is this how it's really going to be for 4 years? I don't know if I could do this for 4 years, but looking back, it's like, that was God's test. He's like testing, you got to trust in him, trusting the plan that he has for you and your team right now. And just understanding that this is going to make you better. Like you're saying, the adversity and the life lessons learned through those tough practices, the every minute of every day thinking about how can we get better today, or how can, the it's a 4-hour practice, which you're allotted the 4 hours, we got to get through this practice and we got to,
sure,
stay sharp. And I think we learned a lot of life lessons, and it built a lot of character, and built a lot of mental toughness. And I don't think I'll ever play for a harder coach or be as, I think it really prepared me to keep playing today, and it's carried over. And I think a lot of the other guys could say the same thing, but not only on the court, but off the court. Adversity hits, what are you going to do? Okay, you got to adapt. You got to, figure out a way to make it work. And it's the same thing I apply to, with my kids or whatever it is.
As we wind down, Jordan Hulls, he's been our guest here on Sports Spectrum. Do you envision yourself when basketball is over, playing wise, to coach? Because you're kind of already doing a lot of clinics, and I see on jordanhulls1.com, you got a lot of things going on in terms of teaching the game of basketball. Do you think you're going to be following in Grandpa's footsteps? And it sounds like your dad was teaching you as well and coaching you. Do you think you'll be a coach someday? Is that the next step?
Yeah, I do really love teaching the game. I think it's very, it's rewarding once you see, you're actually helping somebody get better at something that they're super passionate about, because I know how important that was for me as a kid. So right now I do a lot of, one-on-one training. And that was one thing with COVID happening in March. I was able to be home a lot longer than I've ever been. And so I was able to open up my JH1 training to more kids. I had done a few just in the summertime, just here or there, kids I knew. But I was really able to say, like, all right, here, Bloomington, I'm here. I want to teach the kids how to play the game the right way. And, I'm at your disposal. So I would literally be outside. I found an outdoor court that we were able to use. And I was teaching kids all summer long, all morning, all night, just trying to figure out a way to help them best, whether they're going to be high school players or call it whatever it is, they wanted to get better. And that was my goal. So I found a lot of joy in that, long days, of course, but it was really rewarding. And and honestly, it really helped me maybe than they even realized, more than them. It's helped me understand, like, okay, if I have to teach this kid how to do the most basic move, I really have to break down each and everything. And I learned a whole lot about that aspect, but also how to coach different kids, different personalities. You see it a lot as a teammate. I have to talk to this guy a certain way. I have to talk to this guy a certain way to get to the same end goal, right? So I learned a lot about that, and it's been really rewarding. And I would love to get into coaching, whether that's a training piece or I have camps in the summer as well, or getting college coaching. I'm away from my family a lot as it is, or I have been the last 8 years. So whether or not I want to get in that world, and where I would have to start is I don't know, but I'm more than willing to keep learning. And I think that's one of my big attributes is that I want to learn as much as I can, and I'm willing to work hard and do the things I need to if I need to. It's something I'm passionate about. And basketball's been my life. I think an Indiana kid would love to continue just being around the game. I know I for sure would. I've been blessed. I'm 30 years old now. I've been blessed to, I've been playing since I was 4, and not a lot of people can say that. So if I could stay around until I'm 60, even better.
Yeah.
I don't know if my kids will want me to coach them or not, but if they're passionate about it, then I'll do that as well. But the door is open. I think it'd be a cool opportunity, and to share my knowledge from what I've been able to gain overseas as well. Just playing at a high level over here, and then from IU, and then so on and so forth, just different life lessons and stuff like that.
jordanhulls1.com is the website. People can go check out more about Jordan and JH1 training. Last question as we wind down here. What's the Lord been teaching you and showing you right now? So that's a question we ask all of our guests, Jordan. What's the great lesson the Lord is teaching you? He's teaching us something new. Sometimes he teaches something new every day, multiple times a day. But what is something that's been on your heart that he's been teaching you over the past, whatever it is, weeks, months, or even just today?
Yeah, I think, with kids, I automatically think of patience. I think he's been teaching me that for the last 4 years for sure. Patience is a big one, but I also think it's just, I think with the COVID situation, I think a lot of people would agree with me on this, is just trusting in God's, in what he has planned for you, because you never know when something's going to be taken away. I didn't expect my season to be taken away last year. I didn't expect to sign I didn't know if I was going to play this year or not. I wanted to, of course I wanted to keep playing, but I'm only going to put my family in the right decision. So it's trusting him and his timing. I think that's been a huge thing for my wife and I. We're kind of planners. We like to plan. Her way more so than me. Don't tell her that, but she knows it too. I tell her to her face. But I think just really trusting that, go with what's happening now. Be present, kind of what we talked about earlier, how difficult it is sometimes, but being present and trusting in his plan, and just being thankful for each and every day that we get, because we don't know if we're going to have to come home in 2 weeks or if we're going to, you never know what's going to happen. So being present and being a light for my kids as well is something I pray for every day. So if daddy gets upset with them, just to let them know that I still love them and care for them, and I only want them, to get better. That's our main goal.
That's good stuff. He's Jordan Hulls, and make sure you check him out again at jordanhulls1.com. Appreciate you, my friend. Great to get to know you. Thanks for joining us all the way from Germany. All the best to you for the rest of this season. Stay safe, and congrats on that new little one. Excited for you. 3 kids. That's no joke.
No. 3 under 3. We're good. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And many thanks to Jordan Hulls for joining us today on the show. Check out the website, jordanhulls1.com. Give him a follow on Twitter. Let him know that you heard his story here on Sports Spectrum. It's a great one, and we appreciate Jordan for sharing it. I could have gone another hour with him talking about Indiana basketball and what that sport means to that state. But he was great, and really appreciate him joining us here today on the show. We also appreciate our sponsors, Compassion International. Make sure you check them out at fillthestadium.com right now to donate and help release these kids from poverty that are just stuck in a really bad place because of the pandemic. Fillthestadium.com. And then our friends at Water Mission, they're fighting the global water crisis and also doing an amazing work. And the pandemic has only magnified those areas as well. So check out watermission.org to learn, to pray, and to donate over at watermission.org. We also want you to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast because we appreciate you. We thank you for tuning in, and we want to get the word out. So if you could help us out, that would be amazing. Just simply rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcast app, and then share the link to this podcast with someone you know. Maybe it's someone who loves basketball. Maybe it's someone who wants to go into coaching. Maybe it's a little kid who wants to get better at basketball, and Jordan Hulls is a great person to turn to and hear his story. So any kind of way that you can share it, maybe it's on your social media pages, it just helps get the word out, and it means so much to us as we try to bring Jesus back into the conversation on the intersection of sports and faith. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name again is Jason Romano. We love you guys. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.